have a high degree of confidence what my next few months are going to look like. I've got a high degree of confidence we'll be able to pay out our investors each month because of the security from these long-term leases.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer, ADP. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in.
All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. My name is Jeremy DYER, your host, and I have a guest on the line with me again today, another amazing one. Surprise, surprise, Sean O'Dowd. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise. So Sean is a managing director at Scholastic Capital. Scholastic buys single-family homes in elite school districts and rents them to tenants on long-term leases. Sean, I've not had anybody on the podcast to this point, nor have I met anyone with such a very small buy box in terms of what you're looking to acquire, specifically homes that are in what you refer to as elite school districts. So before we go there, can you maybe give our listening audience a little bit more color on your background, your journey, what you're focused on today, et cetera?
Yeah, for sure. Happy to talk through. So Sean, I live in the Chicago area, was originally born here. I moved 22 times before I went to college, which was my initial introduction to real estate real estate is this fun thing my family does every 7, 8, 9 months, which is find a new place to live. So bounced around a ton growing up, ended up going to college. I was in Wharton's undergrad program, so studied business, finished up, came back to the Chicago area for the first time since leaving when I was 2. Worked for a large consulting firm in the area. And while doing that, met my wife in the process, but also was basically taking every dollar that I was making on the consulting side and then plugging it and pushing it into real estate, which led to eventually where we are now of running Scholastic.
That's interesting. Well, this is kind of the white elephant in the room. I've got to ask the question to get it out there. How do you identify which specific school districts that you're going to target and what factors make for, an ideal Scholastic, investment?
Yep. So at its core, we're really looking for a huge supply-demand imbalance. So on the demand side, the demand driver is the school district, a really good school district that parents want to move to. They want their kids to go to that school district. There's a lot of different data that we use to do that. For example, we have to use Grade School, which is the one that integrates on Zillow. It ranks schools 1 out of 10 because that's the one that's on Zillow, which is where we're also leasing our home. So it has to be perfect there. But we also have a lot of other data. My favorite data set, we've got one that shows what percent of the high school graduating class goes to Harvard, MIT, or Stanford. And there's like a magic percentage there. If it's over this percent, it's 2%. Over 2% of the graduating class is going to those 3 schools. It's a pretty good predictor of like, hey, this is a highly desired school district where there's going to be a lot of demand to be there. That's the demand side. The other side of the equation is the supply side. So I'm looking for areas that are 90% owner occupied or higher. National average is mid 60s. So it basically means everyone who lives there owns their own home. It also typically means there's no multifamily. Because if there is like one 300-unit apartment building, that's going to skew that owner occupancy number way low, below 90%. I'm also looking for areas that don't really have land left that they can build houses on. So we're at max supply, and it's not going to get any higher than this. These areas typically also don't allow multifamily redevelopment. You can't knock down a couple houses and then put together and build an apartment building on typically in these neighborhoods, which creates this beautiful effect of like a lot of demand to be there and basically no rental supply at the same time.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I really appreciate you highlighting kind of the main genesis of why you target specific markets is, really that supply and demand imbalance. You like areas that they're, I guess we'll call it landlocked to a certain extent, right? There's no more dirt to resurrect. But also, it's interesting, you like to have areas that have a low multifamily supply, and you also like to target markets where there's a high percentage of the graduating class that goes on to, an Ivy League school, or something at that caliber. So really appreciate you sharing that. Really kind of my next question, Sean, is, what really inspired, this unique focus on single family homes and elite school districts versus a lot of the, countless other types of strategies that you could have gone into in real estate?
Yeah, for sure. So I had a couple, call it like personal impacts to it. Like my mom was a teacher at public schools growing up. So I had a little bit of exposure to it from her. My wife, her family emigrated to America so she could get a better education here in the States. And then as they moved to the best possible school district they could find. So like there was the personal element to it. But then there's also just the, like, for lack of better words, like the business element to it. It's like there's a concept in consulting that we talk about a lot of, like, what is your right to win? Like what is Coke's right to win a consumer compared to Pepsi? Like there isn't much. They're kind of the same product. Like if you want to drink a cola and there's only a Pepsi, like you're going to drink it. But if we think about that from like standpoint of like tenants, like what is your right to win a really good tenant that wants to be in your home, that wants to stay there for a long time? It's hard to really find a good one. Like maybe like location if you're like close to someone's office, but there's office parks everywhere. There's offices all throughout downtown. Like there's hard to say one location is better than another one from a work perspective. But school district, like that's something that's quantifiable. That's something that's finite. There is, if you are the only rental home in town that has access, only rental home in the area that's got access to that really good school district, well, like you now have the right to win the tenant because you've got the thing that the tenant is looking for.
Yeah, I would only suspect you've got a tremendous amount of leverage there. Where are you finding, opportunities primarily? Are these, opportunities that you have a real estate agent or broker out searching for you? Are they off-market deals? Are you trying to target, distressed, either financial or operationally distressed, single family homes to acquire?
We do a couple different things. The majority of it is on market. And the way that we do that is we've built custom software on top of basically MLS listings. So as listings come through, we're basically able to filter through like every home on the market through a lot of different filters down to the actual homes that we like. And we're able to move very quickly to then get offers out on those homes and basically lock up exclusivity. So then we can tear the home apart with diligence and inspections and everything. We're about to start doing off market as well. Again, not just by the nature of these zip codes, the vast majority of the people who are selling in the zip codes are families who just became empty nesters, where their youngest child just went to college because they no longer want to pay the high property taxes, they want to move to Florida, whatever it might be. The fun thing about that is all of these high schools, because they're proud of their graduates, because they're all going to great schools, is typically in April, they'll publish a list of all their graduating seniors and where they're going to college. That list is now our off-market target list because that is the list of everybody in town who is probably going to be selling their home in the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. It's a great competitive, way to look at the market and, be chasing after those opportunities, specifically the list of those that have graduated from the school. So wonderful model there. Speaking of model and speaking about kind of the long-term versus short-term leases, I know that you focus on the long-term side of those leases. How does that strategy specifically benefit you and the investors that you partner with?
Yeah, so our average lease is about 2.5 years at initiation, and we really like it because when someone signs a 2.5 year lease with us, like number one, like we've got income predictability, which is great, and then number two, I'm a big believer in that vacancy cost is a lot higher than I think people typically model. Like people say 5% vacancy, 10% vacancy. Well, it can be a lot more than that, and that's also not including turn costs. That's not including a whole host of factors that are built in. With those longer term leases, like our true vacancy is a lot lower because we're locking in a tenant for longer. And it also means that we can take care of our investors better. So most real estate funds send out distributions to their investors every quarter. We do it every month. because I have a high degree of confidence what my next few months are going to look like. I've got a high degree of confidence we'll be able to pay out our investors each month because of the security from these long-term leases.
I'm Zach Haptonstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investors. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, and go to our website and set up a call with our team.
Yeah, it makes total sense. What are some of the, kind of maybe the unique challenges that you see, of investing in single family homes in high demand school districts as opposed to maybe other areas?
Well, so the biggest one for the high end school districts is the property taxes are high. Like most single family funds, their largest line item is maintenance, and then property taxes is kind of farther down the list. For us, property tax is number one because their property tax goes directly to the school districts. Teachers in the school districts we buy in are making $100,000 a year plus. So it's an expensive school district to run, so our property taxes are high. The other element is just like the asset class in general. Like single family is more operationally heavy than call it traditional multifamily. We've got 10 houses spread throughout the town versus one 10-unit building. There's quite a bit of extra work that goes into making sure that we're, number one, taking care of the home, but also number two, cataloging and keeping track of all the data. Like I have the serial number of every single fridge that we own across all of those properties, and we need that data for a whole host of reasons. But it's a lot harder to do that when it's all, call it, spread out across 10 different locations in town versus one building itself.
Yeah, it makes total sense. The other thing that I kind of think about in this space is, your model is centered on family-oriented housing, and how does that, type of a strategy influence the way that you manage those tenant relationships and even things like property upkeep?
It's an important consideration because, to your point, like most of the time, like we've got average family is 4 in our house right now because it's typically 2 kids. So we're pretty thoughtful about that from like a wear and tear perspective. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but like one of our advisors to our fund, he worked at Tricon, which owns 38,000 homes, got a lot of data. They did a bunch of analysis on this, and like he really helped in our thinking about this. But if you've got a house with 4 people living in it, your fridge is being opened 60 times a day. If you've got a 1-bedroom apartment, your fridge is being opened 12 times a day. It doesn't sound like much, but if you extrapolate that out over a couple year period, like your stuff is going to break a lot sooner because you've got more people in it. If you're going to have more shower minutes per day than you were going to have in a 1-bedroom apartment. So you do need to be more aggressive on your maintenance assumptions and shorten your life expectancies because you got your stuff is getting used more because there's more people in there.
Yeah, it makes total sense. That kind of wear and tear of the asset is going to be significantly greater based upon, the amount of people that you have living in beds in those homes. So makes total sense to me. I've got 6 people living in my home. I know that you've got 4 in your house. So I'd love for you to kind of tell our listening audience a little bit more about, having 2 kids with a third on the way. How do you balance, your work at Scholastic with the demands of family life, especially in such a high growth role like you're in right now?
Yeah. It's a tough balance because like I've got 2 awesome kids, a third on the way. And it's number one priority is make sure to be with them and spend time with them. And like dad's always around. But at the same time, we're also we're building this business. So I have been putting in a lot of effort and gotten a lot better of like defined time. So like this time of day, like I could, with my son, we call it buddy walks. We go on a buddy walk at the same time every day. Like those sorts of things kind of built in have made a big impact. Like this time, like I will put my phone down. My team needs me, like they can Slack me, but they know I'm not going to be getting to it because I'm with the kids at that point. Like those sorts of things have been helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely necessary for people to really structure, their lives around, what's most important to them. And, if you're a husband or a father, right, structuring your work life, around, the people that, you love, right, is really incredibly important. So I appreciate that. Where do you see Scholastic Capital, headed in maybe the next 5 years? Are there any, new directions or markets that you want to, plan to focus on in the future?
It's a good question. We're largely going to stay in the same markets, which is up in the Midwest. But our big focus is we are building a portfolio that we can sell to a large institution down the line. Doesn't mean we will, but we're building something that we do have the ability to sell if somebody were to overpay for it. And to do that, like we need a lot more houses in the same area, and we need a lot more data on the existing houses that we have. So big focus for me and the team right now is like, let's continue to add homes into the portfolio, operate them well, track our data well. So when we have this really nice, awesome portfolio of homes down the line, if somebody comes knocking, we can give them a really good data room, make it the easiest underwriting they've ever done on a portfolio, and put a number on the table that's a clear overpay for our investors.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Sean, this has been a great episode. I appreciate the tremendous value that you brought to the listening audience. What would maybe be one or two different ways that we can learn more about you and connect?
Yeah, so we're scholasticcapital.com, where is the website. The other thing is we're pretty active on Twitter. So I tend to share kind of a running dialogue on a day-to-day basis. I'm at Sean O'Dowd 15. I'm the 15th Irish guy, apparently. But I share a pretty running dialogue on a day-to-day basis of like what we're doing, what we're seeing, what we're thinking about, and how that impacts our decision-making.
That's great. Well, thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And listening audience, thank you again for jumping into another episode of The Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.